Shalom. All praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, where I learned this truth from. Much respect to the brothers that are out there preaching and teaching this truth worldwide across the four corners of the earth, risking their lives and freedom for this truth. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect, the house of David, and the Akim and Akwaf that might be listening to this lesson on today. This is your brother Abad Yabah coming through with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. And the title of my lesson is, What is Your Influence? Now, influence is defined as the capability to have an influence on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something, or the effect itself. Now, we grew up, with our parents being our influence, maybe, someone on TV, music, a lot of things being our influence. But in actuality, it should be, the men of the Lord, being our influence. Someone that can really, allow us to learn and be wiser and follow the narrow path of righteousness in the right way. So that's what this lesson is basically going to go into. Like, what is your influence? What influences you? What gives you the motivation to keep moving forward? And when it comes to, us as men of the Lord, it should be the scriptures. It should be, our elders, the apostles, anyone that is doing the work and doing it day in and day out, and showing us the way, the true way, the truth itself. So without further ado, I'm going to go into my scriptures. My first scripture is Proverbs 9:9, and it reads, it says, "Give instructions to a wise man, and he will be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning." So with that being said, we need someone to influence that's greater, not someone that's lesser. And I said that to mean this, someone that is doing, things righteously, someone that is truly led by the Spirit. That's what should influence us. That's what should affect us. That's what we need to be developed in, and that's where our behavior will be on the right path if we're doing that. Because it says in here, give instruction to a wise man and he will be wiser. So if we're already learning and we're being learned, then someone above us to give us more instruction, that's just going to help us being, better in that. In this case, being the scriptures, being learning of the truth, and that's where being humble as well comes into play, because most people that think they know it already, how can you teach them? How can you give them instruction? And it says, teach a just man and he will increase in learning. So if you teach someone that's righteous, they're going to learn even more, so that's what we're in, we're desiring to learn ever the more until we leave this place, until, the destruction of Babylon comes forth, but we're trying to learn all we can. We're trying to be in a position to learn, and we can't do that, if we're not humble. We can't do that if we're not influenced by someone that's going to be righteous. Proverbs 10:17 reads, it says, "He is in the way of life that keepeth instruction, but he that refuses reproof erreth." So we have to, be humble enough to understand which way to go, what influence to receive and to follow. Us being righteous, we want to follow those that are on that particular path, so we can we can gain that everlasting life that we desire. But we know that if we don't follow the right instruction, it's going to lead to our destruction. And I'm not saying that to be rhymey or anything, but if we don't follow the right instruction, it's going to lead to our destruction. And so that means that we need to have that discernment, which way to go. You know, when there's a fork in the road, you got to be able to have that discernment which way to go in order to keep you on that right path. You know, one way leads to destruction, the other way leads to everlasting life. We want to stay on that path of everlasting life because that's what we desire. But in order to do that, we have to follow the instruction. We have to be able to accept it. We have to be able to understand it. And it's only to make us better. It's not to control us. It's not to put us in a position to where we're only going to be followers, because as you learn, you get put in a position to where you have to lead. So therefore, you have to know what instruction to accept and what instruction to keep, and the mindset in order for you to do the great works that Yahweh Shem Yahushua is gonna, put forth before you. Proverbs 13:20 reads, it says, "He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed." And that is true to life. You know what I'm saying? Who you keep company with, and let me rephrase that. The company you keep is what's going to influence you ever the more. So if you stay around people that are low vibrational, that all they talk about is folly and carnality and just wicked behavior, it's gonna rub off on you regardless of what you desire to do beforehand. You know, but if you're hanging around wise people and you might not be so wise, and you keep your mouth shut and you listen and you let those that are wise, instruct you and help you out in ways that you need to be helped, then you're going to only gain from that. You don't want to be destroyed by the company that you keep, those people that are influencing you when you are not yet learned. And I say that because when we are younger, we're more influenced. As we get older, we just have to know how to go about life and who to surround ourselves with. But when we're younger, it's like you tend to try to be popular. You tend to try to be around the it crowd. But sometimes that it crowd is the ones that are the most wicked. And you have to have that discernment to know that, hey, this is not for me. I want to, I'm if I have to be alone, I'd rather be right and be alone than be wrong and be with the so-called crowd. And that's the way that Yahweh Shem Yahushua has placed it before us, even in our full lives, throughout our lives. You follow in the crowd, you're going to end up being destroyed. But if you're righteous and you're following the Spirit, being led by the Spirit, you're going to probably not have a whole bunch of people around you, because everybody doesn't want to be righteous. Everybody doesn't desire to be righteous. That word holy means set apart. So in order for us to really get what Yahweh Shem Yahushua has for us, we have to be in a place to where we can receive it. And we can't receive it always by being amongst a whole bunch of people, because amongst those whole bunch of people, there's going to be a whole bunch of conversations. You want to be able to hear from Yahweh Shem Yahushua. You want to be able to meditate on that word that he's given you, and to be able to understand it, with everybody in your ear, everybody trying to, tell you this and tell you that, and it's not really what you need, then you're going to end up being led to your destruction. So we want to go on that narrow path. We don't want to go on the broad path, because that broad path, many are going to fall into destruction. And we want to be influenced by righteousness and not wickedness, not wrongdoing. Proverbs 22:24, it reads, it says, "Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go." So, like I said, the company you keep can influence you. And Proverbs 22 and 24 says we're not supposed to befriend someone that, that is angry and hot tempered, because what is that gonna lead to? Someone upsetting them, and then something happening. Either them doing something destructive or something happening to destroy them. And you being in the midst of that, you could be a casualty as well, you know, or it can rub off on you and you end up being hot tempered. You don't want that to influence you. So we have to know that Yahweh Shem Yahushua is setting us apart for a reason. You can't be with any and everybody. And if you are an actual servant of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, he's going to bless you in ways beyond what you can ever imagine if you follow that path. But you're going to have to be able to receive it. You're going to have to be able to hear his instruction. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to be able to be in a position to do that. And you can't do that being influenced by wicked people or people that are carnal or people that doesn't desire any good for you. 1 Corinthians 15 and 33 reads, it says, "Do not be not deceived. Evil communication corrupt good manners." So this is what we have to understand. You know, when we see something is wrong and we see something that is happening, that's why discernment is so important to have. And if you see that something is going in the wrong way, you have to remove yourself from that situation. Because if you're set apart and you're doing the righteous acts, then, you won't desire to be amongst those that are wicked. You won't desire to be amongst anyone that is not righteous for the most part. Like I said, we have family members. We have people that we grew up with, and it's not uncommon to be around those particular people, in certain circumstances. But that's not something you should be influenced by or drawn to if you are being led by the Spirit. No one can change you unless you allow them to, unless you allow them to influence you, unless you allow that to be something that you're drawn to, and then it becomes a problem. But if you are led by the Spirit, if you're using your discernment, being circumspect, watching around you, and making sure that the things that are around you are not suspect, but they line up with the way that you're trying to live your life and the things that you're trying to do. And I'm speaking to myself as I teach this lesson. I always want to make sure that that's clear. I'm speaking to myself as well. I don't really frequent being around a lot of people, but the people that I'm around, I desire for them to know the word. I desire for us to be able to have like-minded conversations. Where I work at, I can't say so much. That's why I'm not, around everybody at, work. But when it comes to my life after, working and who I frequently be around, it's more or less the brothers, the brotherhood, and not just, being around those that don't have this truth and they're living their lives according to the world. So I don't desire to be amongst worldly people, even if it includes my family. I'm not trying to chase them down and be around them, and be more or less righteous on camera. But once I'm not on camera, then I'm this whole different person. I desire to be who I am on this camera versus anything else, because I know that Yahweh Shem Yahushua has a a reward for me if I'm doing this work and I'm doing it in truth and sincerity and striving to be better each and every day and not just be someone of the world expecting, to be covered just because I do a lesson here and there. I want to be what I preach. I want to be what I teach. I desire to be a man in the Lord, and that's what I'm. That's why this lesson is being taught. You have to be influenced by someone that has it. When I say have it, have that spirit upon them, heavy, and that are truly, righteous and not just, playing a part or being this particular person in front of everyone, but then someone else, when no one's looking. It's when no one's looking that's the most important, and that's why our influence is important. What is influencing us is important. Galatians 5:7-9 reads, it says, "Ye did run well. Who did hinder you that you should not obey the truth? This persuasion cometh not of him that called you. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump." So as I was going through my spiel, this the verse is ever more prevalent. As you run this race, you cannot let nobody distract you. You can't let your family distract you. You can't let, who your so-called friends back in the day, or even friends before you got in this truth, whenever that was, you can't let no one, whether it be your children or as men of the Lord, as our wives or anyone, distract you or cause you to fall out of this truth, because you have been called to do this work. You have been called to stay on that narrow path of righteousness. And he's the one that wants more for you than you can ever want for yourself. He has a plan for you, but we have to follow that plan. We have to have the Spirit on us to continue to do this. We have to be on fire. It's a multiple things that a man of the Lord has to do, and that's why it's important for us to do our job and to be on point. All it takes is a distraction here, not wanting to follow the instruction there. A couple of things can mess you up altogether, and then you'll find yourself out of this truth. You'll find yourself in a position to where you cannot receive from Yahweh Shem Yahushua. You'll find yourself in a position to where you're no longer doing lessons. You'll find yourself in a position to where now you're all by yourself and you're looking around and looking at your life and not realizing what happened. Because you've fallen back into the world and you know that that's not right. That's the main thing that that scares me the most. Being back in the world, following the things of the world, knowing what the truth is, and not being able to get back. So we have to make sure we continue to run the race that we've been presented, that is for us, and not let anyone take us off of that path, because all it takes is a little thing to mess up the whole journey and cause us to be outside of this truth. And that's not where I pray none of us desire to be. My final scripture is what should influence and inspire us on a day-to-day basis. 2 Timothy 3:16-17. All scripture is given by the inspiration of Yahweh and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of Yahweh may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. So we should be influenced by the scriptures. We should desire to want more and be inspired by what Yahweh Shem Yahushua has for us on a day-to-day basis. Let us know what's wrong and what's right, and how we should live our lives and how we should go about our day-to-day walk, and understand that, you know, even though we may fall, we have to get back up and we have to do what is required of us. If we desire to be on those chariots when Yahushua comes, we got a ways to go, even though it's going to be a short time to get there. We got a ways to go, and we want to be complete. You know, it says perfect, but we want to be complete and be ready to do whatever Yahweh Shem Yahshua has for us to do each and every day. So to be influenced by anything, it should be the scriptures. It should be the men of the Lord. It should be those that are frequently doing this work day in and day out. And we should ourselves want to be influenced to someone else. You know, when it comes to righteousness, when it comes to being a good servant, a good shepherd over his flock, you know, it shouldn't be that we're influenced by the world. We should be influenced by this truth. So with that being said, that is the conclusion of my lesson. I pray that all would have listened, were edified. And as always, I give all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodesh. And until my next lesson, Shalom.